What's doing, everybody? I'm Alec. Thank you for watching First Class Fatherhood. Today's guest on the podcast is Captain Richard Phillips. Captain Phillips was captured by Somali pirates and rescued by SEAL Team 6. His story was immortalized in the major motion picture titled Captain Phillips. He was played by Tom Hanks in the movie. I've had the honor of interviewing one of the Navy SEALs that was on the rescue mission, Rob O'Neill. If you tap the link in the description down below, you can hear my interview with Rob O'Neill back on episode 54 of the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's jump into today's interview right now with Captain Phillips on First Class Fatherhood. Joining me now, First Class Father, Captain Phillips. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you very much, Alex.
All right, let's start it like this. How many kids do you have, and how old are they?
Well, I have two kids. One is 30, my son Dan, and I have a daughter who's soon to be 30, Irish twins. And she's in LA. My son Dan is in Connecticut.
Okay, awesome. What type of sports or activities were they into growing up?
My daughter was very much into sports. My son really wasn't, but my son really impressed me. I knew my son got it when he came to me in high school, and he said, "Dad, I want to play. I'm going to play lacrosse." And he was like a junior, I believe. Never played sports since Little League. Was afraid in Little League because he was afraid to get hit by the ball. So he was never a sports guy. And I said to him, Dan, they do a lot of running in lacrosse. I played college. I played in high school. I've always had a lacrosse stick. Still have one now to play with the dogs or my kids when they were younger. And he said, he goes, yeah, but I got a lot of friends there, and I want to play. And I go, that's great, dear. That's what it's about. It's about having fun, new horizons. So he went. He played 2 years. He wasn't that good. He had a good time. He really had a good attitude, and he learned about being part of a team, which I think is important to be for any kid to be part of a team. Whether it's the band, the orchestra, or a football team.
Yeah, well said. I couldn't agree with you more there. I think that's the best part of it is learning to play with a group, with a team, and to be a part of something a little bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And if you could here, please just take a minute to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Okay, my name's Rich Phillips. I live in Underhill, Vermont. I sailed 35 years as a merchant mariner. I sailed 25 as a captain. Sailed all over the world, all the continents. As I said, I had two kids, so it was tough on my kids. My wife had to do a really good job. She brought up my kids mostly. I mean, sometimes I'd go away and I'd come back, they'd be talking or they'd be walking. So my wife was very important in that since I was gone 6 months out of the year. But I sailed in the Merchant Marine, 35 years total. I retired about 5 years ago, and I was involved in a little incident off Somalia about a decade ago. And I was lucky to be saved by our military, our U.S. Navy, our extraordinary, our Titans, our U.S. Navy SEALs.
Yeah, it's incredible. I've obviously seen the film and I know all about the story. I'm going to get to that in just a second here. So in your career, during your career here then now as a sailor, how old were you then about when you first became a dad, and how did becoming a father kind of change your perspective on life?
I was 33 when I became a dad, so I'm a little slow. I'm not that smart, but I became a dad. It was great. It's a responsibility that really hits upon you, especially when the first one is born. You start thinking about all the problems. You start thinking about all the things you'll be going through, and your thoughts and expectations are nothing to what will happen. But it's really, to me, it's a responsibility, and it's great. I've always liked little kids. I come from a big family. I have 4 sisters and 3 brothers, so I always thought I'd have a big family, but I don't know how my parents did it, but with 8 kids. But I have 2 kids, and really it's a responsibility and giving them responsibility as they grow up, so they're ready when you aren't there.
Yeah, very well said. And I know that you allude to, well, first of all, what was it like for you? Did you have any say in the matter of selecting somebody who was going to play you in the film? Like, did you have a say in, like, you wanted it to be Tom Hanks, or were there other candidates there? What kind of part did you play in that?
No, I mean, I didn't have a big part, to be serious. It was already, I think, chosen with the movie or the The people involved, producers, so I had no choice in that. In the beginning, I never thought the movie would be made. I used to say, who do I want? They'd ask me, who do you want to play you? And I said, Queen Latifah or Joe Pesci. But I didn't really care. My concern was really that they would portray my industry, the people I work with, men and women, the Merchant Marine. I was just concerned they'd give us a bad light, which I don't think they did. But really, I had no control in the choosing of the people. But I don't think you can do much better than Tom Hanks.
Yeah, and that was incredible. Yeah, the movie was so well done, and I know at the beginning they have him talking about you wanting your son to go and follow in your footsteps there to be a cat. Did that ever come to fruition? Is he in the seamanship?
Oh no! Being a seaman is something you really gotta love. You have to love doing it because it's not for the money. It's the challenge. I think is what we like. No, my son was always very serious, much more serious than me. He always loved schools. He loved reading. He was a huge reader. I read a lot, as well as my wife. So he's a huge reader. And I used to tell him, I live in Vermont, and so I said we had a deal that if we'd be out at the bus, waiting for the bus for the school to take him to school, that if it snows more than a foot, which used to be not rare around here, it is now. If it snows more than a foot, we'll go to the mountain. We'll blow off school. Something I would have done, when I was in school, but. He turned to me and he goes, Dad, I have work to do. I can't go skiing. I got work to do. And so my daughter turns to me and she goes, well, I can go, Dad. I can go skiing. And I go, no, we do it as a family or not at all. Get on the bus. So they went on the bus. I went to the mountain. But my son Dan was always serious. And it's one thing, we had a showing up here in Vermont. Columbia Sony was very good about that, and they let us do a fundraiser for a family friend who had died earlier. So we raised some money to benefit that. And that's one of the things most people laughed at who know us, was that we were worried about Danny in school because I used to try and pull him away from the books because he was so serious. It was our daughter who really was more like me, who really didn't care about school, like sports, like the social aspect. We had to keep an eye on her.
Good stuff. Yeah, and then fast forwarding then to now, obviously, you get captured by the Somalia pirates. Now, while you were actually in there, were there any of the pirates that actually you could communicate, that spoke English like the one does in the film? And what was it like for you as a dad during that time being captured like that?
I had no problem communicating, to be honest. Some of them spoke better English than my crew. And they speak 3 or 4 different languages. It's not like here in the States where we speak one, albeit not that well. They spoke multiple languages, at least 3 or 4, but I had no problem discussing or talking with them. The leader really didn't talk that much. He always stayed in his role. He was never nice. He was never, what you see in the movie. Some of the other pirates were, and that's one of the crazy things of it was I did talk to the younger one. And I said, these guys are taking you down the wrong route. He was probably 20 years old, 21. And, these guys are going to get you in trouble. You need to find a new way. And in the end of the whole situation, he was the crazy one. He's the one who liked to sit across from me and dry fire his weapon and just grin at me. So in the end, he was the strange one. As far as fatherhood, to be perfectly honest, people ask me, did I think about my family? Did I think about, things like that? And I really didn't. For me, it was all problem-solving mode. The whole time on the ship, I didn't think about it. It slowed down on the lifeboat a little, so I did have time to think about it then. I did mentally go through the affairs of my life. I said something, if I had one last thing to say to my son, one last thing to say to my daughter, one last thing to say to my wife. I did that because I wanted to be ready and prepared for whatever the outcome. So it wasn't really a father role model. It was really, I just wanted to be ready, say one last thing to my family, be prepared, and no matter what happened, I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to give up.
Yeah, incredibly emotional part of the film, and I can only imagine in real life how much more to the degree it must have been for you. Now, I've had the honor of having. Just yesterday I recorded with my 50th Navy SEAL that I've had on the podcast here. I love their mindset. I love what they stand for. I'm so enamored by their whole community, and I'm glad we have access to them as civilians where we can now follow them on social media, read their books, because I think they're such a benefit to our society as a whole. How familiar with you with the Navy SEAL unit and the teams before they came to your rescue?
Oh, I was really not familiar, to be honest. I mean, the Navy SEALs for me was that movie way back when, Charlie
Charlie
Sheen.
Sheen.
Yeah, that really was the SEALs. I mean, I knew about the SEALs. I have dealt with the SEALs, before that in the Merchant Marine, either bringing equipment or whatever, but didn't really know any. Wasn't really aware of everything they do, but since then I've got a little glimpse into the community, and it's truly an amazing community that they have. Not just the guys; everyone thinks it's the guys. They're macho, they're capable, they're intelligent. But they also have a sense of community, and they care, which is, I think, their biggest strength. They care for themselves, they care for their families, they care for the fallen, the heroes' kids. It's a community I got to get a glimpse into, a little glimpse. That's truly amazing, and I can understand how they can do near impossible things.
Yeah, well said. And I'm always blown away after I get done speaking to them. It's like they're so humble about what they do, and you know that what they're capable of, and it's just amazing. Now, at what point after the rescue did you finally get a chance to talk to your wife and kids, and what was that like for you? What was that moment like?
Oh, it was, to be honest, I didn't need to talk to my wife. I'm used to not talking to my wife for weeks, months at a time. We used to do letters when I first started sailing, we wouldn't talk for months at a time. So I did get to talk to her. They hooked her up when I was on the Boxer, that first night when I was rescued. I talked to her. I talked to Obama. President Obama did call her also, and my wife, in her indomitable way. When he called, he said, "Well, I just talked to your husband, and he's fine." She said, "President Obama, you mean I'm the second call?" So it was nice talking to her, but really, I just said, "I'm fine. I'll be home, and I'm fine." For me, it was really over. It was like a curtain, very dramatic. When I got out of that lifeboat, but basically the SEAL picked me up and threw me in the rib boat, and they got me away from there. So for me, it was over. For me, I was just trying to get familiar, get back, realize I'm out of that situation.
Yeah, I would imagine it must be tough to kind of process all that immediately after it all went down, and then. When was the first time that you were approached for this story to be turned into a movie, and what was it like to watch this movie? I would imagine you watched it with your family. What was their kind of reaction to the movie? Were they like asking you what was real and what wasn't and all that?
Yeah, really, from the moment I got home a day after my wife's birthday, April 17th, and my phone didn't ring off the hook from 6 in the morning to 10 at night. It was really amazing. Books, actors, writers, directors, things like that, agents, and I was totally out of it. And I want to tell you, SEAL gave me good advice. And one thing he told me, he says, you're going to be thrown back into the madness, into the media, into all that. He says, take a month before you make a decision. And that's one thing I did carry away with me. I said, I will not turn down anything. I will not agree to anything. It was really, I took his advice, and I think it was very good advice, just to take a month, get back to everything, and then figure things out. I actually hired people, just to sort through that thing, the opportunities that were being extended to me. But it's a different world, and that's not my world. So it was very, very strange for me. And it was very strange to see the movie. I actually saw it with my wife. They brought us out to LA to see it before it was completely finished, but they wanted to get an idea of what I thought. And my wife says she cried twice, and she jumped twice and cried at the end. I said it was a good movie. My fear was that they make a movie that was named after me that was terrible, and I'd ask them to change the name, and they asked me why. And I said, one, I don't want a bad movie named after me, and two, there was more than Captain Phillips out there. There was 18 men who were instrumental in the positive outcome.
Yeah, well said there, and I'm sure there's a little bit of that too as well, because the whole crew was very heroic in the entire episode that went down there. So I mean, I obviously I love the film, and reining it back into you now here as a father. what type of disciplinarian are you as a dad, being a sea captain here? And is it different than the discipline style that you grew up with?
Yes, it's different than the style I grew up with. As I write in my book, my father was like Vince Lombardi on a bad day. My father was a football coach, a teacher. He had 8 kids. How he handled that stress, I don't know. But he was always working. And so he basically, he gave us a choice. You want to play sports? You want to work? So that was one. Well, let's play sports because we didn't want to work with him. So that was one thing, and he'd always let you off for schoolwork. My brother was the smart one, so he always had homework. Me and my brother Michael, we didn't want to do homework, so we had to work. But no, it was very tough. But you know exactly where you stood with my father. With me, one thing I wanted to do is hug my kids, and that's one thing that my father never really did with me. So for me, I wanted to be open and show my kids that we can be open because I think that allows them to be open to you. I was tough. I was always reciting little sayings and little witticisms, full of the money is soon parted, bird the hands were two in the bush, and I would continually say that because I think it takes multiple times to get through into a younger than 7-year-old's brain. And so we would constantly hear that. My kids would finish the sentences. They were so sick of hearing it. But I was tough on the outset. But I knew, for kids, I think the most important thing is allow them to be kids. So I wasn't a yeller. I've been criticized that sailing as captain by a few of my people who worked under me. I need to yell more. I'm not a yeller. You need to be. When I get mad, I get quieter. That was one thing. I hate a yeller. My father was a yeller and a cursor and a swearer. And working on the ocean, after about 20 years, I get tired of swears because every other word's an F-bomb. And so we tried to get that into our kids. So basically, we tried to show an example, tell them an example, and then let them see through their own way and how to act.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I work for the railroad. I'm a railroad mechanic, and I've been doing that for 20 years. And it's same thing there. Every other word on the railroad is pretty much so you kind of get desensitized to it, and then you have to make that transition when you come home. And I made it. Now it's a lot easier. When I first became a dad, it was so hard to kind of change that lingo when I came through the door, And,
yeah, you got to watch yourself when you come home for Christmas dinner,
Yeah, absolutely. And segueing that into what were the top values that you were hoping to instill in your kids when they were growing up?
I think for me, it was to be honest, to be able to suffer failure, to be able to get through that, to suffer frustration. I think that's very important for kids. I don't think we teach failure and not being successful. We don't teach the opposite side of it. We have to be able to deal with it. So I wanted the kids to be tough, to be able to know that one faltering step, one step of failure is not the end of the story. They can always come back. That they have to be tough. And again, honesty. And the last thing was loyalty. I mean, the one thing I would tell my kids was you come into this world with one thing, and that's a name. And you go out with only one thing. We're all alone when we die, and that's your name you have left. So that's your personal name, and that's what I tell my kids. So you got to protect that and do the right thing. I always tell them the truth won't kill you. It may hurt, but it won't kill you.
Yeah, I love that, Captain Phillips. And right now, I think we're in this kind of culture where we have, every kid gets a trophy. We don't keep score. There's no winners and losers. And I think that does so much damage because just like you said, you don't get to experience getting cut from the team or losing at an early age. And I think that does help in the development of a child that, from very early on.
Yeah, and I think that helps in resolve. I think that's and when we deal with any problem, I think the first thing that we have to deal with is our own resolve. Are we going to get through this no matter what? I'm not going to take minor setbacks or problems like that. I will get through this. It's tough now, but I will get through this. But much like what we're going through today. It's tough, and we aren't through it yet, but we will get through this together. Together, we're stronger.
Yeah, right on with that. And what's next for you here? Obviously, you see career in the books here. What kind of goals or plans do you have for the future for yourself?
I have retired approximately 5 years ago. I am involved with a trust, a maritime trust, to help get kids more involved, minorities, women, inner city that we don't get a lot. A lot of people don't know what the Merchant Marine is, and we're trying to get the public awareness out there that the economic and strategic importance of the Merchant Marine. A lot of people don't know that our first Navy was our first Merchant Marine in 1776. So the importance of trade as we see today and keeping the sea lanes open, which is our Navy's job, is very important. So just to get the awareness of the Merchant Marine, try and get some kids who had no idea, who like to use their hands, like to deal with problems, like the not being in an office all the time. It's an opportunity. So I'm involved with that. We're trying to get more awareness out there on the public side of what the U.S. Merchant Marine does and what it has done historically.
Yeah, good on you for that. And the last thing I'm going to hit you with here, I love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast. You probably touched on it a little bit already. What type of advice do you have for the new dad or for that about-to-be father who's out there listening?
I think first of all is you're going to make a mistake. It's going to happen. Yeah, get plenty of rest, and just understand. It doesn't last forever. It's one thing, like I said, I always like kids. I like little kids more than older kids, but, it doesn't last forever. I think when you're in the middle of it, I can remember thinking back with me and saying, oh man, this is, and I'm gone 6 months a year. This is on and on and on. And it's not, it is so quick. It seems like yesterday that Danny and Mariah were 6 years old, and my son Dan was asking me, what does it do, Dad? It goes by so much quicker than you think, and you get so much more out of it. And unfortunately, it's too bad you couldn't have kids after you had kids, because then you'd be so much better. But I think the most important thing is let them be kids. Let them fail. Let them do it their own. Let them taste a little success, because nothing builds confidence like a little success, and success is built upon success.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. This has been an honor for me. I got to say, Captain Phillips, you're a first-class father all the way, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you very much, Alex. Great talking to you.